It's funny that you come to jazz because that would have exactly been my next question.
Okay.
Because I'm like, we were talking about the last one lick you played.
Yeah.
You also got a lot of chromatic in your solo playing.
Sure.
Do you have any way how to approach it? How can you fit chromatic in rock playing without having it sound strange in a rock style?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's something that again we got to go back to Mike Stern because. Fusion guitar existed before Mike Stern, came on the scene. Mm-hmm. Certainly, I mean, if you look at McLaughlin or name so many guitar players, or Schofield and so many greats. But Mike was the first guy that I really resonated with because he really had this really authentic Hendrixy bluesy style. Yeah. But then it was meshed with the chromaticism, the more modern approach. He clearly had spent time working on the early bebop stuff, but then also was developing the more Brecker kind of modern harmony stuff. And so that's what really got me into it. And I realized, well, this is all working together because I've been studying jazz at that point. But at the age of 16, I started taking lessons from a local jazz teacher, Ron Pritchett, in Evansville, Indiana. Even though I was a solid rock player, he was teaching me how to read, and he saw I could play. So he was turning me on to Barney Kessel and Joe Pass. So I had some of those sounds were in my head. But then there was Mike in full glory, just cranking it up. But with that, it's like, whoa, it really blew me away. So I think I took a bit of that with me, and then around the same time, if not a little earlier, Steve Lukather was starting to introduce some of those sounds, who he might have been getting from Carlton. So it was all that. It was a love of the rock and the love of the bebop, and then really hearing how it all worked together, and then sneaking it in when I could. I remember in my Danger days, I remember some of the band members like, what's going on at the end of that song? Is that a rock scale? It's like, oh, well. I was probably playing, whatever the bebop lick might have been. But a lot of what that is, we can show somebody real quickly. If we have an A minor triad, right? And we want to just do some chromaticism. So chromatic, this means, the space between the scalar tones, right? Yeah. So a real basic lick that I like to do is I take the C and the G sharp. Yeah. So, and you can do the same thing on the next three strings. So you're surrounding the chord tones of the A minor triad, the A and the E and the C. The more simple Joe Pass approach. Yeah. Where you could surround each chord tone with the rule being a diatonic from above and a chromatic from below. So this is just kind of adding a little bit more to it. So it's nice that the chromatic bits are so nice to kind of spice up whatever pentatonic and scalar things you have, because it just gives us this air of instability and just kind of, well, it's dissonance, And when you follow it up with some more consonant harmonic content, it's a nice tension and release. Yeah.
I saw you also recently practicing jazz tunes. You did some photos on Facebook or Instagram, and you played these bossa tunes.
Yeah.
How important do you think is it, or general, would you advise rock players also to play over some standard jazz standards and tunes just to get to know? And
absolutely, because for me, what that does, it really focuses you in a very melodic way, because it tendency in rock is to have not always, but it usually can be kind of key centric. I mean, you can think of what key you're in and just wail, or maybe this might be over just one chord. But in jazz, there tends to be the 2-5-1 chord progression and variances of that, and so you can also think scalar, but it makes a lot more sense when. And so,
spelling out the changes.
Yeah, I think so. The thing about the bossa nova stuff is that's a great middle ground between rock and jazz, because it's the harmonic, sense of the type of jazz changes, but it's in a straight eighth time field. So it's not you don't get bogged down with maybe having trouble swinging initially. With playing, working on swing feel helps everything too. But so the jazz thing can be really important if a player is really wanting to, add to what they're already doing to give it a different flavor. But the one thing that people do tend to point out about my playing is that they like the melodic content, and I have to look directly at having worked on the jazz stuff by being a big proponent of that, because again, I'm voice leading through chords much more than I am thinking of scales.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I'm saying? And scales are great. Scales are a great way to learn the guitar neck and to really get rid of all the blind spots. You know, we tend to start off with some pentatonics in a couple of spots.
Yeah.
Once you start really learning all the scales and all the positions, it's valuable. But that's not where the music comes from. It comes from that voice leading, either through chord changes or you know, if I'm playing an A minor to G to F chord progression, I know it's all A Aeolian, but I'm much more aware of each chord at the time that it's sounding, and what will the notes sound like that I'm playing over that, whether it's a chord tone or non-chord tone, or you know, tension versus release. So I think it's very healthy to do that. And you start with simple stuff like Blue Bossa is a real common tune where, you know, it just has a couple of different key centers, but you can voice lead through those changes. And it was what my first guitar teacher told me when I was 16. I was like, how do these guys know what notes to play, right?
Yeah.
And his first comment was, we'll just learn the arpeggios.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it. I wish I had. But because I wanted to sound hip immediately, right? But when you do the foundational work, it can really make a big difference.
Yeah.
You know?
What I also found very interesting when it comes to rock players playing jazz tunes, it feels hard to play jazz tunes which are in a major key, because as a rock player you're so much used to play minor keys.
And I'm still to that way to this day. But yeah, it's like anything else. You just have to do it.
Yeah.
You know, the more you do it, the more your ear gets tuned to it. But yeah, as rock guitar players, a minor is home. It's so much easier to make. It still is beautiful melodies over minor stuff for sure. But I love playing a major now too, for sure.
So what's your advice for I mean, you mentioned that you don't have a practice routine, right?
Well, it's never been good about that. But the most consistent thing that I can try to do is just play.
Okay.
My practice routine these days are the iReal book, you know, which is a great app. If you're playing jazz, you can have a backing track to virtually almost any standard, and you can pick the key and the feel and the tempo and all these things. So on good days, the first thing I do in the morning is to grab my coffee and sit down and play for like an hour. I'll just pick a standard, and so I'm working on technique without playing scales or arpeggios, which you know you can do also. But I tend to get all that work in when I'm just, you know, playing through the standards, because I'm working on technique, but it's also I'm having to really focus the melodic ear. You know, I'm having to be considerate of the harmony and the changes going on. And then the other important thing I'm trying to do every day is just learn something new, just a little bit. Whatever. Today it was. I didn't have much time at the hotel in between traveling from Plauen to Nuremberg and then coming for an interview. So I just learned to. What is it? It's a. I've never played Killer Queen before, but I thought, just learn the changes. If I can learn.
Doing it by ear.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Just putting on the recording and just let me see if I can figure out. And again, what I learned wasn't incredibly complex, but I'd never played it before. It's a song I've known my whole life. Okay. But yeah, I just found the audio and put it on. Okay. And by exercising that work of just learning little bits. Then the other day I went. I'll save you the distortion. I mean, just such beauty in his playing. So I'm looking forward now going back and maybe learning some of Brian May's solos and guitar work, and really delve into. We were talking about the Queen movie, the Bohemian Rhapsody movie, which I really highly recommend seeing. Bring your tissue. It's actually very emotional, not just the inevitable ending of what happens with Freddie, but just in general, it's very inspiring, but it'll break your heart at the same time. But it's been great going back and being re-inspired by the work that they did. When you think about all the vocal harmonies and all the guitar work that went on, it's really inspiring. Really great.
Yeah.